Hi, my name is Mike O'Brien. I'm a Seattle City Council member, and I've been working on issues around homelessness for a number of years, in particular people living in their vehicles. Today, Chris Daniels from King 5 TV chose to run a story that unfortunately sensationalized and played on the worst fears that people have about who are the homeless population in our community. Normally I wouldn't comment on draft legislation at this point, but I felt that his story required a clarification from me so the public understands what the City Council is and is not trying to do. So to start with, we know that we have a challenge around homelessness, in particular people living in vehicles. The one-night count this year reinforced what we've already seen. Nearly 40% of people that are living without shelter are living in vehicles. And unfortunately, we don't have a system that's actually working to help make that better. So this spring, we convened some task force, a group that composed of people currently and formerly living in vehicles, advocates working with people living in vehicles, trying to get them into housing, and business representatives from communities that have a high number of vehicle residents in their communities. This work group will be, members of this work group will be speaking at Councilmember Bagshaw's committee on Wednesday afternoon to talk about some of the recommendations that this work group came up with. Simultaneously, we're working on legislation, it's in the draft process, to try to address some of those concerns that they highlighted. Specifically, what we know is people that are living in vehicles do not have the resources to pay tickets. And for the city to have a program that continually tickets, tows, impounds, confiscates their vehicles, makes the situation worse for everybody, for the people living in the vehicles and the people in the neighborhoods where they're living. We need to have an alternate path. The idea behind the legislation we're working on would create an alternate enforcement path for people that are participating in a vehicular residence program. People would volunteer to be part of this program. They need to meet certain qualifications. And as long as they are actively participating in that program, we would bring them the services they need to ultimately get them into permanent housing. As long as you stay on this alternate enforcement path, we will try not to be compounding the problem by putting more and more burdens on people that are already experiencing homelessness. For folks that choose not to be part of this program or not participating in the program, the continual parking laws and enforcement path will continue to apply. Specifically, the story that ran talked about people in sexual exploitation being somehow exempt from this. We made it very clear that that is not part of the legislation as currently drafted. I do not intend to have an exemption for sexual exploitation. And I want to be clear with people, we're trying to make the situation better. If you're living in vehicles, you would much rather be living in permanent housing. And for neighbors and businesses of those people living in vehicles also want to see people in housing. The goal here is to get them the services and the resources they need to get everyone back into permanent housing. But I want to be clear, we have thousands of people currently living in vehicles, and we're not going to change that situation overnight. But what we can do is we can stop making the situation worse by ticketing, towing, and start to get them the services they need so that they get stabilized and back into permanent housing, in which case the whole community is better off. Now, normally I don't comment on draft legislation, but this story was misleading enough that I wanted to make some comments. We will continue to work on drafting this legislation with our law department. It may have something ready to share with the public as soon as next week. Once we're ready to roll out that draft legislation, I'm happy to comment more, and we will have a legislative process that will likely take more than a month, where we hear input from the public, and the council will make refinements to that legislation and hopefully pass something that helps improve the situation for everybody. Thank you.